meeting of the Mobile City Council, Tuesday, September 27th. Please stand for our invocation by Reverend John Dees, Emmanuel AME Church, and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance and a moment of silence following the pledge.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Shall we bow? Almighty God, we come today, first of all, to say thank you. Thank you on behalf of all who are gathered here today. Thank you for the many and abundant blessings. Thank you for life itself, for the measure of health and strength we need to fulfill our callings. Thank you for the ability to be involved in useful work and for the honor of bearing appropriate responsibilities. Our Father, we pray for our mayor and for this assembled council. We ask that you grant them wisdom to govern in the midst of conflicting interests and issues of our times. Our Father, bless the agenda to be fruitful and for the common good. Give the mayor and the council members an assurance of what would benefit those who live and work in and around our city. In the name of Jesus, we pray. Amen.
Let's have a moment of silence this morning for a Mobilian, Victor Birch, who was killed Sunday morning in a head-on collision. Many in this community, especially the running community, knew him to be one of the finest among us.
Roll call. President Small.
Here.
Vice President Gregory.
Here.
Councilmember Penn.
Here.
Councilmember Carroll. Councilmember Reynolds.
Here.
Councilmember Daves.
Here.
Councilmember Jones.
Here.
Statement of rules.
And good morning, everyone. It's good to see you, everyone, on our September 27th, 2022 meeting. At this meeting, we do have rules. At this time, I ask if anyone have any type of electronic device, please at this time put on the off or the vibrator position. The off or the vibrator position. Any person desiring to address the council must sign in indicating the resolution, the ordinance, appeal, or public hearing agenda item before entering the meeting. When addressing the council, the speaker must state his or her name and address. Any person desiring to speak to the council on a non-agenda item must sign in to the city clerk office no later than a Thursday prior to the council meeting at 2 o'clock p.m. by 2 o'clock p.m. The subject that he or she wishes to address must be identified and pertain to the city of Mobile business. Any person who has not given proper notice to the city clerk office and wishes to speak on a non-agenda item would not be allowed to address the council. Each speaker is allowed 3 minutes to address the council. A bell will sound to indicate the end of 2 minutes. 1 minute remains for summarizing. The second bell indicates the time has expired. When addressing the council, there is to be no personal address to any individual council person. All statements are to be made to the chair, who will recognize any council member who wishes to respond. To maintain decorum, there would be no undue applause and or public outcry allowed. Madam City Clerk.
Approval of minutes of September 20th.
So move.
Second. Been properly moved in second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye. Aye.
All opposed? Minutes approved.
Communications from the mayor's office.
Yeah, Mr. President, on behalf of Mayor Stimson's greetings and good morning. He is traveling on official business, will not be attending the council meeting this morning. And so That'll conclude the communications from the mayor's office.
Thank you.
Monthly finance report.
1 minute.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Gregory.
Good morning again. I have a proclamation this morning in honor of E.O. Wilson, and I wondered if Linda reading glasses. And Andrew Saunders is also here. Whereas it is a privilege and an honor to posthumously honor Alabama native Edward Osborne Wilson, widely known by his pen name of E.O. Wilson, for his lifelong achievement as a scientist, educator, and ambassador for the city of Mobile, born on June 10, 1929 in Birmingham. And whereas Mr. Wilson achieved a level of respect, honor, and fame throughout the world for his life's work, including discovering the chemical signals used by insects and plants for communication, creating and popularizing the concept of biodiversity, inventing several new scientific disciplines, and revealing the evolutionary origins of both animal and human societal organization. And whereas he served as an entomologist for the Alabama Department of Conservation, he was a Harvard professor for more than 50 years, lectured at universities around the world, served on the boards of the Nature Conservancy, the World Wildlife Fund, the Audubon Society, and dedicated his professional career to promoting conservation of the natural world. Whereas Mr. Wilson was the recipient of more than 150 awards, including the National Medal of Science and 2 Pulitzer Prizes, the author of more than 30 books explaining the natural world to the public, the subject of multiple documentaries, including several Nova specials. And whereas he made his first significant scientific discovery right here in Mobile, Alabama, at the age of 14, as the first person in the nation to identify the invading South American fire ant. He discovered hundreds of new species of insects, had more than 100 species of insects, birds, bats discovered by other scientists, all named in his honor. And Mr. Wilson became the preeminent biologist of his generation, used his prominence to tirelessly promote the rich biological diversity of his home state of Alabama, the city of Mobile, and he shared his time and enthusiasm to foster conservation in Alabama. Whereas he served as cartoonist for the school newspaper at Mobile's Barton Academy Junior High, and he began his exploration of the natural world as a member of the Boy Scout troop that met at Mobile's United Methodist Church, delivered 420 copies of the Mobile Press Register every day during World War II, and he earned a bachelor and a master's degree from the University of Alabama. And whereas Mr. Wilson's lifelong dedication to the environment, education, and scientific discovery have transformed the fields that he worked in and inspired countless generations to cherish and explore both Alabama and the rest of the world. So now, therefore, I, Gina Gregory, Council Vice President, along with the members of the Mobile City Council, do hereby posthumously honor, commend, and offer this resolution to the family and native state in highest tribute to Mr. Wilson's memory and his scientific legacy. That is an awful lot for a very wonderful man and very well-deserved. Incredible. Thank you. And if y'all like to just say, yes, please do.
It'll be very brief because that was very long.
Yes.
Thank you. Ed loved Mobile, and he told people all over the world about Mobile. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he was very influential throughout the world in science and in studies in philosophy of science. He loved Mobile, and he would tell everybody that. Thank y'all very much for this. By the way, October 7th at the museum, we're having a recognition of him, tributes and talks and films and such and all. The Museum of Mobile is very collaborative with us. Hope to see you October 7th.
Monthly finance report.
Okay, good morning,
Morning.
President.
Morning.
I just want to say something about our last visitor. Too bad he left. I lived outside of Mobile for many years, but my mother always lived here, and she used to always send me newspaper articles about him, and said, because she was a big environmentalist herself. So anyway, that was good to hear that information. I just want to give you an update on city business through August of this year. A little bit on sales tax revenue for the month. We did better than we thought. We ended up at $16.7 million against the budget of 13, so we're about $3.5 million better. And year to date, sales tax $179 million versus a budget of 163, so we're about $16 million ahead of budget for the year. Just to put it in some perspective too, last year I said we did 16 million this past year. Last year we did 15.8, and year to date this year, as I said, 179, and last year we were at 169. So there was an increase this year. For the total revenue for the year, for the month we were at 22.5, and our budget was 17.7. So we had about $4.7 million to the positive there. And year to date, 289 million versus a budget of 261. So we were $28 million ahead of plan for the year. It is interesting to see, though, that I think that the level of increases, as you might want to know, are not growing as fast as they did from the previous year. But of course, they're coming off of a pretty high number last year. But I think it's also encouraging to know that they still showed a pretty positive increase over what we did last year. The other points so far this year were business licenses. We're almost 20% ahead of business license revenue from last year, and that's turned out to be a real good revenue source for us. I think it's pretty much evident that we've done good work on trying to make sure that we collect all the business licenses that we should, and also we're seeing more businesses continue to grow in the city over the past several years. And the other thing that is up again for the 8th year is the SSUT, and I've talked about that a little bit. That's the tax on revenue that is sold through the internet. So it's good that it's up, but on the other hand, it's not so good because we don't make as much as we would otherwise. And that's something that the mayor and his staff are working on pretty hard right now with the rest of the mayors in the city to try and make some changes to that policy going forward. Overall, the balance sheet hasn't changed much. We made $1.4 million profit in the month of August. So if you back out our reserve, we have about $86 million in surplus. That's less. Well, that's available as of the end of August. We're expecting a loss in September. So if that loss holds up, we end up doing what we usually do every September, we'll probably end up the year with about $78 million in our surplus that's available after we take out our reserve. A couple things I did want to also talk about. I didn't talk about the different departments, did I? How did I do that? I did want to touch on that. Public safety. We had a budget of about $92 million this year. So far, we've spent 86, so we're about $4 million under budget so far this year. The real telling tale will come for all these at the end of this coming month, September. Public Works, our budget was $54 million. So far through August, $48 million was spent, so we have additional revenue there. And I won't go through all of them, but overall, the cost centers are running about $17 million better than budget. In other words, not spending what was in the budget for the year. And that's really what has contributed to our surplus. Overall, some of the highlights that maybe I think I don't like them so much this year. Interest rates this past month, we added another 0.75% in September. So since May, interest rates have risen from about 2.5% to 3.25%. Mortgage rates, 30-year mortgages are up to 7.4%. That's a big change from where we were at the beginning of the year. Inflation, although down a little bit from June to about 8.3, it reached a high point of 9.1 in June. It's still high, and that's why we see our interest rates going up as the Fed tries to slow down the economy. We talked before about a recession. There's not been a whole lot of talk about that since quarter two because there's a lot of debate about, is that really a recession or is it not? I think most people probably think that it is. The other thing that I think that most people, at least who are in retirement age, like to think about or don't like to think about is the uncertainty in the stock market. We were at 36,766 at the beginning of the year. We're down to 29,260, so we've seen a decline of about 20% in the market since the beginning of the year. Overall, I guess our position is still strong. We're going into next year with a little more of a conservative plan than we had this year, and it's going to be an interesting one as we go forward and see how the economy does going forward and how the city does going forward, but I think we're in good shape going into the year. One other thing I did want to talk about is that, as you all know, we're in the budget season. Hopefully we'll be concluding the budget soon, and I just want to say that I certainly I want to thank all the people on the city side who've been contributing to the development of the budget. It starts with the accountants in the departments, goes all the way up through the directors, and goes all the way up through the finance department, up into you guys. I want to appreciate, and I want to say I appreciate that all the feedback that I've had from you all this year. We've had a lot of good dialogue and a lot of questions this year, and I think they've been beneficial to both parties. So I appreciate that. I appreciate your support, and I've enjoyed most of the time working with you guys during the budget. So thank you very much. Any questions?
Yeah, I would like to say, Mr. Hall, we appreciate you, all the hard work that you have done, but not just for the city, but also, throughout, even showing the city council and taking your time and explaining different things to each city council member. And we thank you just for your availability. I appreciate you.
And one last thing I'd like to say, every band has a band leader, and for the budget, our band leader is Celia Sept, and of course I think you all know that, but she puts together quite a piece of work every year, and I want to thank her for all that she's done. So,
do you mind standing, Ms. South, and we just go ahead and give you? Thank you.
Mr. President,
Mr. Carroll.
I have just one question. With the change in the economy, most people think that it's not a recession, but those that know. The question would be: is it wise for the city, or would it be wise for the city to take on any other responsibilities in the next fiscal year that would involve additional capital outlays or additional fiscal responsibilities beyond what we're doing right now?
Depends on who you ask.
I'm asking for your opinion.
I personally think that there's a lot of uncertainty from my perspective going into this coming fiscal year, and I can see it continuing to develop and evolve as we go forward. And for that reason, I think that the progress that we've made over time in being a little more fiscally responsible and cleaning up our financials over the last 10 years has been a good thing and put us in a good position as we head into this coming year, or maybe the next. It depends on how long this goes. So I would not be too aggressive. I can tell you right now too, one other thing that just I was reminded of this morning. We talk from time to time about the police and fire pension, and I really don't want to get into a debate about should we do this or do we that, but the overall value of the pension fund since last September has declined by about $28 million, and that's a big hurdle to recover from over time. And we still have time to do it, but nevertheless, I mean, that's kind of an indication of the sort of challenges we're going to have this coming year in the city of Mobile and everywhere else.
Mr. President.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I noticed we were $3 million above revenue off the sales tax, and that's obviously because of the increased inflation. One thing I don't have the financials in front of me for the month. I'm assuming the operating expenses on the other side of that also increased. Did those negate each other out?
Well, not totally, because in the month of August, we did make money. We made $1.5 million. I think the important thing really is to take into account that what we're seeing, or what I'm seeing anyway, is that I think the margins we have between our revenue and our costs this year are not as big as they were last year. In other words, we made more for the revenue that we had and the costs that we had than we have this year. And I think, this coming year, we're going into a fiscal year. We've got other expenses that we've built and we built into the plan. Some of them are personnel related, some of them are business related. Every department's got them, and we have a lot more control over a lot of those, I believe, than we do necessarily over the revenue. The revenue is going to come in and be what it is. I'm reminded of that from time to time by some of my staff, that the revenue is what it is going to be. And so I think we have to watch that. We'll have to watch it month by month. How are we doing with respect to the plan and with respect to the revenue that's coming in?
Mr. President.
Mr. Carroll.
One last question. And just my mind thinking in terms of municipal expenditures and revenue gain and growth over the next year. The Fed market, we all know, has a plan in place now over the next 3 years to increase the interest rates over a period of time in order to control inflation. For those of us that know, that annual number is 2% per year that they're looking to get everyone to. So to do that, they continue to raise the bar when it comes to that interest number. But in my mind, I'm thinking of the city and potential growth. And if this city were to grow, and I alluded to that earlier, and I want to be as transparent as possible here, because you answered the question in a way that said we need not be as aggressive. If the city was trying to make an attempt to grow here, would it be a safe assumption to say that we were in a good position to try to grow, knowing that we would have a tremendous capital outlay to do that beyond what we currently have, meaning more employees, more police, more fire, additional capital resources in places that are needed to support areas and things like that? Are we in a position to be able to do something like that?
Well, I'd say we are in a position to do some growing. I think it's going to have to be monitored and discussed thoroughly before we do. Remember, too, that you could argue, I think, that we are growing. We're going to end up the year with a surplus of about the same that we had last year when we ended up. And that's because we put a lot of money away into projects. We put money into the airport. To me, that's growth. We put money into a lot of other projects that we sat around and talked with you guys about. To me, that's growth. So, yes, I think there's still opportunity for us to grow. I just think that we have to be mindful of the environment that we're heading into and watch ourselves much more closely going forward. The Fed has already said they're going to probably raise the rates 2 more times this year, and that's now we're talking real interest rates again, kind of like the kind when I was younger, and I don't really I don't relish that. And, the other thing to consider too is that I didn't mean to get into an economic discussion here, but the other thing to consider is a lot of us sitting around this table and in this room, whether you are near retirement or not, we like to look at the market. It's a good indicator of how things may be going. And, this market really grew at a tremendous rate over the last several years. But why did it? Well, there's a lot of reasons why. there was no interest rate. Nobody could put their money in anything other than the stock market. And so people put it in the stock market. When you have all that influx going into the market, and you still have nothing that's really holding back the economy other than maybe the fear of inflation that's starting to happen now, the market's going to go up. Well, now we see interest rates going up. And for the first time here, we in the city, we're thinking about, okay, now what can we put our money in and actually earn some money? And other people are saying, what can I do to put my money in to avoid losing money? Well, you start putting them into other assets, fixed income assets, something like that. And so as long as this interest rate goes up, you're going to get that negative market feel and actual market feel going forward.
Yeah, thank you. And I really appreciate everything you've done. As I said earlier this year, I didn't pick at the budget based on the rate the economy was changing. I think that we should have a conservative budget year, also a conservative spending year based on, believe it or not, my wife has beat this into my head. As all of you know, she's a banker, an investment banker. And it's a good thing that you have somebody to bounce things off of that know a whole lot more about this stuff than you do. But we still have, like I said, other things that we're considering. We got a $25 million building that we're considering building, which is a parking garage. Mm-hmm. And we have some other things that we're considering building too, with rising interest rates and the things that we're going to be looking at. And on top of everything else we're trying to do, it alludes to that we may be spending a whole lot more money than what we may want to in the coming year. Based on what the economy is doing than what we truly may need to. And we may have to slow down a few of the items that we're trying to do is what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I think that's part of the equation, just as you say, because it's not only the cost of money going up, but even though the rates are going up and even they're trying to slow the economy down, inflation is still out there too, so it's almost like a double hit right now.
Again, thank you.
Thank you.
And other council members. Thank you so much, Mr. Holt.
Adoption of the agenda.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Agenda is adopted.
Appeals, we have requests for waiver of the noise ordinance on November 26th, October the 8th, October 15th, and March 25th, 2023.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Appeal passes.
Public hearings today is the public hearing to fix costs for demolition of structure at 2767 College Street, to fix costs for demolition/securing of structure at 1162 Congress Street, and for fixing the cost for demolition of structure at 1300 Persimmon Street.
This open up the public hearing for the said properties. Is anyone present that would like to address the council? You may do so by coming down to the podium, stating your name and your address. Again, if anyone present that would like to speak on these public hearings. If not, the public hearings are closed.
Presentation of petitions and other communications to the council. Women's Foundation of Alabama.
The Women Foundation of Alabama president. Next. Thank you.
Carolyn Hargrove.
Morning.
Okay, the reason I'm here,
Ms.
I'm Carolyn Hargrove.
Address.
Address 264 North Dearborn Street.
Thank you.
And I'm here because I requested a demolition of the property, and it had to go. That was last year. It was around June of 21, and I had to send additional information in. I did that, and I'm still denied. And the reason I'm denied, it says there's no attempt to sell the property, which I have no plans to sell my property. There are no plans for redevelopment. And in my answer, I put possible plans for future redevelopment once the price is going on, but I didn't have any definite plans for the future. But due to inflation, I said, I wasn't sure what I was going to do with the property. And the last thing, my answer was the unique character of the downtown development district. which is only about a few houses on the street. And then I'm still getting tickets on the property. So my thing is, I'm still getting tickets, but I'm denied to tear the property down. And one person says historic, one is in a historic area, so which is it? I don't know. Can I get some answers? Why can't I tear my own property down if I want to?
Ms. Carey, would like the administration to answer these questions?
Well, yeah, we talked at length, but the DDD has some involvement here too. One, the house is historic, but it's not in a historic district. That's the catch-22 here. I had the opportunity to go by the house again on Friday, actually go in it, and the house is precious. It has tongue and groove heart pine siding on the interior walls. It has a heart pine floor, the ceiling heights, the trim. Matter of fact, the mantel in it is so old that it doesn't even have the accommodations and plinth blocks that most of these houses did after the late 1800s. So it's a precious house, and it's worth saving. Now, what I don't agree with is that it seems as if though there are competing ordinances here that we talked about, where one entity doesn't allow you to do what you want with the property, saying you can't tear it down, or we're telling people that you have to sell your property in order to meet requirements so that it's not torn down. And the other is telling her that she's continuing to get tickets when she's trying to make corrections to the property. I think that is extremely unfair to the property owner, especially when she's trying. She's been to court now 3 times to try to get some resolve to this and still hadn't gotten it. So last week, I think I've talked to Shayla, I've talked to Fred in the DDD. We found a way to help you with the roof to get it protected. The next thing that needs to happen is someone or some entity, and I'm hoping that we can find a way through some of the city departments and resources that we have, is to find a way to help you get the back corner protected and secured so you're no longer getting tickets. The tickets are coming because of municipal enforcement, and they just want to get you up to a standard where it's safe and the ordinance is right. The only problem on that house is the very back corner of it. The rest of it is structurally sound. You have a couple of roofing issues, but the roofing issues because of the DDD or the DMA and the Downtown Mobile Alliance, they're going to help there. So now we need to find a way to get you to the other part. So I'm going to ask the city if they would kind of back off on continuing to ticket the area or ticket the house, but in return for that, to help find a way to help her to get the facade on that back corner fixed also. This is a house that adds value and culture to our city, where we're trying to save them in every other neighborhood. And actually, if it was in Oakley or Midtown or Detente Square, we wouldn't even allow it to be torn down. We would be trying to find a way to give her money to get it fixed. So I think that we should try to help right here at the same time. Carolyn, if you would, David's sitting up there. I don't know if you've met him yet, but we've found a way for the Downtown Alliance to help you with the roof to get started. And then we're going to try to keep finding a way to help you get to a point where you can get the back end of that house protected too without losing it.
Okay, you're saying the back end, with the inside, I mean, it's completely like,
well,
need everything basically. The wiring is just like.
Well, now that I can't do.
And according to the structural engineer, who I had to go and pay out of my pocket, saying that it needs to be torn down. And I have a certified letter.
You talking about Mr. Hawkins?
Mr. Hawthorne.
Hawthorne, I'm sorry.
I paid him because I had to hire a structural engineer, according to the city, to come out and look at the house. And he recommended that it be torn down. So it's like I'm between a rock and a hard place. I mean, he certified the letter. He said he's had it over 40 years experience. Now I'm having to spend money out of my pocket to try to fix something up that, if I want to tear it down, it should be up to me, basically.
I hate to see the property be torn down, even myself, because we're trying to save. every bit of the infrastructure and fabric of the neighborhoods that we can. I hate to tell you what you can and you can't do with your property because I feel like it's not my business, you know, and I also feel that uh, we shouldn't be telling you what to do with your property because you have rights to ownership of your property also. I think that that ordinance needs a little bit of work and tweaking so where we can help people instead of create a yawing between departments and between also city agencies too. But I'd love for you to keep the property, but I don't want to tell you what you can and you can't do with the property. But like I said, I've found a way to help with the roof. I'll try to find a way to help with the other, but the interior of it will be something else. Now, and this is me just talking, for the value of the neighborhood and the redevelopment that's happening over there, the house is worth more to you standing than it would be torn down. And that's just my professional opinion outside the council based on what I'm seeing happen in that neighborhood everywhere else.
So I want to give some clarity to this subject too. Number one, this citizen is between a rock and a hard place, in large part because of how the ordinance is written. So there's no need to ask for enforcement to be pushed back. We've already done so. That's been pushed back to December, just trying to help the citizen. So understand that I think there's a nuance here. I think Mr. Carroll's right. The ordinance does need some changes so you don't put people between a rock and a hard place. This is a 2014 ordinance that got voted in, and it's being enforced. So if we want to do something different with the ordinance, I think the administration is going to be more than happy to help with that. I think you're going to have some significant pushback from some different entities on that, but it's still a process. The secondary part of this is the departments are on the same page. This is not in the historic district, but it is in the downtown development district, which the ordinance is specific to this particular area, and you have to go through that multi-step process to be able to demo. The city isn't demoing, nor are we asking it to be demo. That was your decision, of course. And Mr. President, I think there is another option here. There's an appeal process that allows you to go to the Board of Adjustment and be able to go forward with the steps if you choose to do so. But we're going to try to help. Like I said, we've forestalled enforcement, and the court dates have been pushed back till December so we can get some breathing room there, and you can make decisions on what you want to do with your property. Whether or not you want to tear it down or keep it and restore it is completely up to you, and the government is not pressing that issue. There's just a number of steps that you have to go through in order to be able to demolish it because it is in the downtown development district.
Mr. President.
Before we move
hold on, Mr. Carroll. Mr. Reynolds, then you, Mr. Carroll.
I'll defer to Mr. Carroll, but I do have a question for you. Go ahead, Mr. Carroll.
Ms. Hargrove, if it comes down to it, and this is something that you can also consider, because of the nature of the house and the year that it was constructed, you can always offer the house to someone else to move it to another lot within the historic districts. There are people like Mike downtown, Mike Rogers and Willett. So there's companies like Rogers and Willett with Mike who has an extreme interest in historic redevelopment and historic properties that may have a lot to put the house on. And there are others that you could reach out to if it comes to actually having the house moved or sold, the house itself, instead of tearing it down. So there's some other options that are there for you to actually take advantage of. And I'll be glad to help you with that. All you have to do is just call me on the phone and I'll help you through any of the process that you like.
Well, I'm not interested in that because when I first put in my application, the first day that I put in the application, I received a call from someone named Frank Colombo or something like that, asking me to give him the house, not to tear it down. And he told me that he was on the committee and he can assure me that they were not going to sign off on the demolition. And that really kind of got under my skin, basically. Yes,
ma'am. Well, again, we're not trying to hinder you with your property. I think, we just want to see the best for everybody in the option. If you want to tear it down and somebody else could move it, I wish you would. at least consider that option also before you tear it down or go through the process.
Not an option. Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
And thank you, Mr.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds.
have you put in to the speaker an application to go before the Board of Zoning Adjustment at this point?
Go for the zoning adjustment.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's an opportunity here for you to put in an application to the Board of Zoning Adjustment, which is a body appointed by us up here, and you make your case to them so that you could have your property torn down. You can get, potentially exactly what you're after. Just tell them the reason why, and they're going to consider all the facts, and then they'll make the call on whether or not it should be allowed or, not. So that would be my suggestion to you. It seems like that's the quickest path forward to what you want. And I stand with you. It's your property. So if you want to tear it down, I think you've got some rights there. So I would put that application in. Maybe somebody here can help you with that today if that's what you choose to do, and go make your case to the Board of Zoning Adjustment. They're reasonable folks.
Okay, and one more thing. In the meantime, can I ask that I not get, while we're trying to sort this out, any more tickets?
I think Mr. Woods already addressed that. He said that they had already backed off on some enforcement action through December, I believe.
That's correct.
Right, because it's not even my fault that I received a ticket because I asked for the demolition prior to the ticket.
Yeah, and I agree with her. And I said earlier, I thought that the ticket, and I think I told Shayla this, I thought the cost of the ticket should just be waived because she's gotten caught in between three different entities. She's gotten caught in between municipal enforcement, the CRC, and the DDD, which has gotten her trapped in an endless circle. So at least the ticket should be waived as she goes through this process.
So two things. One, ma'am, it's perfectly okay for you to ask that question. Council members probably shouldn't ask that question. Second thing is we're pushing it back to December, and we'll take care of it. Second thing is, ma'am, she referenced Frank Palumbo. That's not something that Frank deals with. I think was probably somebody else that she talked to, but not a city employee dealing with purchasing the home.
Okay, well, I had a name wrote
No,
down.
his
So I said,
name's
who am I
on the
talking to?
correspondence.
Okay, I'm fine with that.
I'll need to talk to you more about that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Madam Clerk.
Okay. Reggie Hill.
Thank you, Madam City Clerk. Citizens and stakeholders of Mobile, good morning. Reggie Hill, 1007 Center Street. I rise today to speak on the budget and Chapter 38 of the Mobile Municipal Code, which deals with municipal court. Anyone who observes this meeting knows that I am a man of many words. But those who know me directly understand that I only state those words when it's totally necessary. And this is one moment in our history. And that might be something that is thrown around quite often whenever it's an electoral season or whenever it is budgeting time or whenever there seems to be some major issue at bay. But this is really different. I think about the idea of how much we argued on the properly implementing redistricting. And that's primarily because there are 4 votes that it takes to pass the budget. I am not going to get extensive because I've written things to this body before. I've shared things with each of you directly. Saturday, there was a presentation of SEC football on CBS. After it concluded, WKRG had its news broadcasting. There were 2 issues that it talked about: weather and youth violence. That was it. Our budget does not reflect what we need to do to improve the quality of life here in the city. The drainage, major issue. We don't have anything that's really tackling that. Being best prepared for storms. We don't have anything in place to tackle that. And we see through obvious displacement of these resources, we are not prepared to take on what's happening with youth violence. And it's unfortunate. We saw arguments last week, and John Kilpatrick is a dear friend of mine. Yet organizations like Dearborn YMCA only get $8,000 in an entire year. Some organizations that actually have the results to improve the quality of life here and stop the things that are detrimental to every citizen get $0. I want to send a great congrats to Judge Whitten. Interesting, the lady who spoke before me talked about tickets that should be waived. He said the same thing. Yet the city is still pursuing stuff that is not advantageous for our best business practices. So instead of me coming up here and hoorahing about it, just know that the time has come for us to move this forward because the city can't wait on it anymore. And apparently, no one up here has the enthusiasm or the courage to do what I believe is necessary to make it best for the citizens. So as you think about passing this budget, consider all those things. So we won't be shocked when we see what's happening in the streets. So we won't be shocked when we see what's happening in the courtroom. And so we won't be shocked when we see the results of the city of Mobile. Thank you on the floor.
Jonathan Jeffrey.
Jonathan Jeffrey, 7304 Raleigh Way North, Mobile. Dear Council President, fellow council members, elected officials, and other guests, I first want to thank you for the opportunity to speak in front of you today. I also would like to thank you for what you guys have done over the past 8 to 10 years as we have worked to improve the city financially. As I've already stated, my name is Jonathan Jeffrey and I have many titles: a husband, father, a football coach, small business owner, but most proudly, a firefighter with the Mobile Fire Rescue Department. I'd like to speak to you about the concerns over the budget our first responders are sharing. Over the past several years, all first responders of the city have been asked to do more while facing adverse conditions of a pandemic, weakening workforces, struggling wages, and countless other obstacles. We're told repeatedly that things will get better, or hear rumors of meaningful raises, talks of new stations and items, but things just do not seem to pan out. I go to work happily at one of our older fire stations every third day that has something new breaking to what feels like weekly. Our AC struggles to keep up during the summer months, so we provide our own window units to help. There's what appears to be a bold problem as well. When we leave from there and go home, our families and friends can smell the odor on us and our belongings. We have had employees from the city come out to inspect, and we're told that we would be made aware of their findings, but that was weeks ago. This isn't just at our station, unfortunately. It is at several of our aging buildings. Our men and women, though, continue to come to work and serve the citizens of Mobile to a level of excellence they deserve. As you may well know, the local firefighters union is in litigation over incentive pay that was given to the police department. I'd like to be on record stating that as a firefighter and a member of the union, none of what we are doing is to take away their pay, but seeking to have it added to the employees of Mobile Fire Rescue. We understand the trouble they face with attrition, as we see it with the fire department. As their employment numbers have declined, they have gone from being able to perform proactive policing and being reactive to only handling the calls that come out. We know they're feeling as if they're earning a fair wage and wondering what overtime they should sign up for, or where can they sign up to work a side job to make ends meet. I'd venture to say that probably 75% of active firefighters work a second form of employment. Why is it that we should have to do this? Why is it as the city approaches a surplus of which the likes I'm not sure we've ever seen, we cannot find a way to pay our first responders a wage that better supports their families? With roughly 850 first responders between fire and police, it would cost the city roughly $4.25 million to pay us all an extra $5,000 a year to get us closer to a competitive wage. As an EMT, I can go and work at a plasma center making $18 an hour part-time. Our medics could earn nearly $30 an hour part-time. This is equivalent to basically our overtime rates. Fire departments in our state, such as Atlanta, recently posted a job announcement for starting firefighter to be paid $56,000 a year with a respectable benefit package. According to Mobile County Personnel Board, our firefighters start at $41,000. We were told a wage comparison would be done before the next budget was passed, but we have received no update on that as well. As I wrap things up, I would like to leave you with a challenge and an invitation. I humbly challenge you as elected officials to ask yourself if we really feel that we are doing the best we can for our men and women who protect and serve us on a daily basis. I would also invite you to come by our stations. Come sit down one day and have a cup of coffee with us and ask what it is that can improve employee morale and possibly slow the bleeding of employees out to further areas. Again, I thank you for your time, and I thank you for what you have done for us over the recent years, but I do look forward to the improvements that are necessary, drastically needed. Thank you.
Mr. President.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah, just a couple of things. Thanks for coming down and talking to us. I don't think it's fair to compare the rates of employment here in Atlanta. The cost of living is extremely different between those two. I am very interested to understand what the issues are with the buildings and why y'all are having to go into buildings that are in need of work. And we have a surplus in public safety. So there seems to be a disconnect there. I'd like to get that looked into and report back to us on what that is and what the issues are and what we're doing to get that corrected. You shouldn't have to deal with that. Thank you.
May I respond? You can respond. So I would like to say, I know our chief is present. They do a great job with handling things as they are allowed within their means. There are talks from what we're being told about building improvements coming. At first, it was supposed to be a 1 to 3 year plan, 2 to 3 year plan, something of that nature. As everybody's already mentioned in front of us, and you all well know, inflation has obviously changed those things. So again, it's when we go to a building that was built in 1953, I believe was our commission date for a station that I'm at. We still have original cabinets. We have a lot of original fixtures and things that are there. So we're constantly kind of almost putting a Band-Aid on an old wound as we're trying to just kind of get through and make progress. Again, so we are thankful for the things they do. We're thankful for the administration that we have and what we're trying to improve upon. But there's always areas to improve and get better. If we become complacent, then that's when we lose. All right, thank you. Thank you.
Question, which station are you at? Which station are you at?
I'm at Station 19. It's at Azalea Government, and my next shift day will be actually Friday. I have somebody working for me today, so I can come down here and speak with you and coach an elementary football game this evening. Thank you.
Mr. President, one comment. I believe that station is already, it's part of the plan to replace the entire station. So I'm hopeful that's going to happen sooner rather than later. I know it's been on the list for some time, but I think we ought to see that here pretty soon, the entire station replaced.
Again, I do know that that's in discussion. It's on the plan. I just know that I believe from what we've been told, the years have kind of gotten pushed back on the relative closeness of the plan due to inflation, rising building costs. But again, that's where the kick and morale comes as we grow a city surplus and get to a point where we can have, again, I'm not in the financial wisdom that the gentleman before me was, but, I think believe 160 million plus is now what we're looking at, where can we not speed up some of these things to live with the cost of what it would cost to build a new station or give our men and women in the police and fire department at least a 2-year agreement or commitment saying we can pay you this to get you closer to competitive wage, to improve morale, stop some of the attrition that we're experiencing until a long-term plan can be come up with.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Just real quickly, Councilman Reynolds is correct. We have a plan currently in our 5-year capital improvement plan to do a new fire station every other year, through starting with the oldest and worst conditions moving forward. So that's currently in the plans, with the first design starting this coming year. So just to make you aware.
All right, thank you. Gregory.
Colonel, could we see that plan? Would you furnish us with that 5-year plan and where the stations fall within that and where we are now so that we can help better spread that word?
All right, thank you. Thank you, Councilman.
Turk Schlesinger.
Thank you, and nice to be here, Chief of Staff. For the Mayor, thank you. Thank you, President, and thank you, City Council, for letting me come up and speak today. And I think today was really going to be a little bit, my address is 5750 Southland Drive. The reason why I'm coming today is to really kind of continue the education. You're very, very busy. I think, we can invite you out to every different location. We have 97 locations across our continuum of care. Many of those are in excess of 50,000 square feet apiece. So they're large. They take a lot of time to view. And anyway, so my attempts here is to continue to come and help educate the council on Alta Point, who we are, what we are, and I think it's important. So first, let me mention that Alta Point has been referred to as a 310 board, right? 310 board doesn't mean that they just kind of called this board 310. 310 board means that it was put together by the legislature under Act 310 And Act 310 and Act 881 were there to deal with mental health. Act 881 created the Department of Mental Health, mostly to oversee hospitals and the community providers that were created under Act 310. And if I was to try to give you some kind of a comparison of what an Act 310 board is, it's for you to look at us in terms of what you would see whenever you look at a water board, right? Like the Mobile County Water Board, or if you look at the Mobile County school systems. We are put in place by the legislature. As a matter of fact, the Water Board Act was actually used to put in place Act 310. And so I did want to let you know, but back in the early 2000s, the 310 system in the mental health center was really kind of strengthened. It says that the 310 board itself is the service provider for the Department of Mental Health. Used to, in a long time ago, and I think that's still a misconception, is that some providers that want to provide mental health services have to go through a 310 board. That is not the case. And in fact, I want you to know that in Mobile County, we have at least 53 other independent organizations that are all contracting with the Department of Mental Health. They don't come to us. They've never come to us to say, can you fund us? They always go to the Department of Mental Health, get certified by the Department of Mental Health, and then get funded. Now, the reason why this system has been set up is because there is a system of regulation in our state that says if you're going to be a mental health provider of any type, we really want to make sure that we certify you. So we don't have a whole lot of providers that are out there just kind of running amok, saying I do this and doing this and putting patients at risk. And so the system of Act 881, the Department of Mental Health, and the system of Act 310 were put in place early on, but that did not preclude all other service providers. I think there's you've heard of these service providers, the VOA, is my time up? Okay, well, the VOA, the Salvation Army, a lot of these have that.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Your
Okay.
time has expired.
All right, thank you.
Matt Armbruster, regarding Resolution 09777.
Matt Armbruster, 5914 East Ridge Place. I'm the director of Ransom Ministries. 2 months ago, you guys approved a pilot program for Road to Work litter program for homeless individuals to get jobs where they could make some money and qualify for programs. And I just came to give you an update because I know hopefully you're considering re-upping this. During this 2 months, we've actually collected almost 6,000 pounds of waste throughout our community. We've had an average of 6 to 7 people on that program. The 5 that started with us from the day one stayed the whole time, which actually surprised me. I thought maybe once they got the check, then they would just take off, but they continued to work. And more importantly than the trash or any of that is one of our guys got reunited with his kids. He's now moving into a house where he'll have 2 children that were given back to him because he had an income coming in through this program. Another one has now qualified for a grant that he could only get if he had income coming in to get his CDL training so that he can now be a truck driver. Another one has also been able to find housing because he qualified for a program that was made available because he had income coming in. Those are the things that are more important than any of the trash that they picked up, but also they've given them purpose, and they also feel like that they are helping our city, and they're making things better for the next people that are going to be involved with that. They've all been assessed through our partnership with Veterans Recovery Resources. 2 of them have been placed in therapy because of mental illness and also had their medications adjusted so that they can now function and hopefully get out of the homeless situation that they're in. This is about changing our community. Yeah, we pick up trash and make it prettier, but we're also keeping guys off the street, men and women off the street where they're panhandling, they're a strain on our medical people, they're strain on our police force, they're strain on all those. So not only are they doing that, but it's saving our community money because they're not having to do that. I count it a blessing to be in the city of Mobile, and I count it a blessing to the people that I've met. I invite each of you to come out and pick up trash with us sometime, and you would enjoy these guys because they're a joy to be around. So I just wanted to give you an update, and I appreciate you considering this Road to Work program in the future.
Yeah, I would like to say thank you so much for coming down. This is one of the best news I have heard, on today. I would like to ask if you can at least come down at least once a quarter to keep us abreast of what's going on and the positive news that you have to share with us. Again, positive news, especially when people get up on their feet, get them a job, and helping their families. It's more, to me, it's more important than just picking up trash, even though picking up trash is very important. Don't get me wrong. But it's just to see a man to take care of his family is very important this day and time. And again, thank you so much for the updates.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. President.
Ms. Gregory.
I concur wholeheartedly with what Mr. Small has just said. So thank you so much for coming down and sharing that information with us. This was a pilot program that you all brought to the city. It was your idea to come and work with the city on this, and we are very appreciative. Hearing these positive stories coming out of that is just really tremendous. That really makes it worth what you all are doing. Like CJ said, yes, we like getting the litter picked up, but the best news is what this program has meant to the people that you are working with. And I would like to tell everybody here on the council that the program that you all run out there is really remarkable, and everybody needs to come visit and see for themselves exactly what it is you're doing with getting people back into the workforce. And I also understand that you all are up for an award with the Partners for Environmental Progress. I think that's wonderful news too, and it just showcases, what you all are doing for the community. So thanks, Matt. And I look forward to hearing from you all maybe on a quarterly basis as well.
Thank you so much.
Mr. President.
Mr.
Thank you, Matt, for coming down. Thank you for sharing that information. Thank you for your service. I want to take up your offer. I would like to participate. So if you can get that information sent to our clerk office, but I would like to join in and pick some litter up as well with you all.
Yeah, we'll do that. I got a list of all the roads we'll be on and when we're on them, and so we'll get that to you guys.
All right, thank you.
We've been so far ahead. They thought that it'd take like 2 days on these certain roads, and our guys are knocking it out in like a day, and so we're way ahead of our schedule. But in this new program, we're going to pick up double what we were doing before. So we have 6 locations right now that we did in the pilot, and we're moving that to 12. We also were in Africatown a week ago, and we did pretty much the whole area of Africatown through that area. That was really good. We had people honking at them and thanking them for being there, which meant a lot to those guys too. So, all right, thank you.
Sylvia Reed regarding 09777.
My name is Sylvia Reed, and I thank you all for being in your presence today. My name is Sylvia Reed, and I live at 1783 Princetonwood Drive West, Mobile, Alabama, and I'm still here to speak on the budget and the spending of the city's finance. And as I was thinking about what I was going to talk about, I thought about the Pledge of Allegiance, and it is something that everyone holds very dear and faithful to. The government of all things, it appears to me, or they should be. And it says, I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I began to look at that, and I looked at the word allegiance, which is a commitment and loyalty to an entire group, and that entire group it could extend all the way to nations, but it extends right now to the city of Mobile, Alabama, and serving the people. And then it says there, which is the mayor, governing, and the city leadership. And the word republic, a form of government that is represented by a group of people or representatives, and it governs and looks out for the people as a whole, and as a need, as far as the citizens are concerned, as an entire group and not as a special or segregated group. And it's a one nation, which is Mobile, Alabama, under God, my understanding, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I looked at the word liberty, and liberty is, it says a state of being free within a society from oppressive restrictions and oppose that the authority imposed on them, one way of life, behavior, or political views. Justice is dealing with the behavior and the treatment genuinely peace for the people and respect for the people. And that word individual means to non-separate the people. When we're talking about our city as a whole, it says individual means to not separate, not divide, the justice, the peace, the liberty for all. So as far as the spending goes in the city, I have seen a great separation. I've seen things being built and restructured over and over that should not be. I see people out of housing, which I am if it was not for my daughter. I see so much injustice in different areas. It is slummish. Again, I say slummish. So therefore, those over those slummish areas, that will make you a slumlord if you're not careful, because you're over that property. So you have to oversee your area and make sure that you're not the slumlord of that area. And it says justice, individual, justice, liberty, freedom from oppression of authority. This is what this Pledge of Allegiance is about. So I thank you all for your presence today and for being in your presence.
Thomas Holmes regarding 09777.
My name is Thomas Holmes. I live at 2117 Charingwood Drive West in Mobile. Thank you for allowing me to speak today. I'm the board president for the ARC of Mobile County, a membership-based group of parents, family members, and friends that advocate for the home and community service needs of all persons with intellectual and developmental disabilities in the Mobile community. I'm also a former member of the board of directors of the Mobile Association for Retarded Citizens, MARC. I want to thank the city for providing your financial support in your annual budgets for MARC over the past several years. I'm here today to advocate for my 45-year-old son, who is a person with an intellectual and developmental disability, and others like him in the Mobile community, especially those who lost home and community services in March of 2020. I want you to be aware that these 100 individuals with IDD and their families received home and community services from the former MARC through to 2019. In March 2020, these individuals were sent home to be cared for by a parent, a sibling, or a family member until services were resumed. Many of these caregivers were forced to give up their employment and therefore the income to the family. In the merger with AltaPoint in 2019, AltaPoint assured the MARC board that the MARC services would be continued uninterrupted following the merger. These individuals received the services until March 2020 when the pandemic caused them to be shut down. These services have still not been restored as of today. These services were supposed to be transitioned to another Mobile provider in February of this year. That still has not occurred. I am sincerely concerned that the funds provided by the city to AltaPoint have not been used in the past 3 years to provide these services. And so I ask that the city request to review the annual audits for the past 3 years of AltaPoint, and you carefully review any appropriation to AltaPoint for IDD services in the proposed budget for 2023. Thank you for your consideration. I'll be glad to answer any questions.
Mr. President?
Mr. Jones?
Yeah, I just got a couple of questions. Thanks for coming down here and appreciate your time. You were on the board at the point in time of the merger, is that correct?
That's correct.
And the executive director of the MARC at that point was Jeff Zogby, is that correct?
That's correct.
Are you familiar with the package that he was given from Alta Point when the merger occurred?
No, sir.
Okay.
I just knew that he transferred his employment to Alta Point upon the merger.
Okay. Did Alta Point obtain any buildings at that point in time with the merger?
The merger agreed to transfer all of the assets, both real and personal, that belonged to the MARC and had been accumulated since 1956. All of those assets, buildings, property, so forth, were transferred to Alta Point as part of the merger. In response to that, Alta Point agreed to retain all of the staff at the same pay level and benefits and continue all of the services. But in March 2020, the staff, the majority of the staff at the facilities on Gordon Smith Drive were shut down, and all of those employees were laid off for the most part. And those have not resumed. Even though the school system has gone back into business, these community services have not been restored.
Thank you.
Other council members? Thank you, sir.
CIP resolutions held over. 21822, authorized contract amendment with Speaks and Associates Consulting Engineering, Inc. for engineering services for the 2019 McRae Avenue Drainage Phase 2 project.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? CIP resolution passed.
Resolutions held over. 09777, adopt the 2022-2023 General Fund, Capital Improvement Fund, and Convention Center Fund budgets.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second in discussion.
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Mr. Reynolds?
I've produced a list of 5 amendments to the clerk's office. We went through them in pre-council, and I'd like to make a motion to adopt Amendment 1, which is to reduce the transfer from Missouri City Golf Course and transfer to a Veterans Recovery Resource, and take attrition funding from Community Affairs, Grants Payroll, and make the total amount transferred to Veterans Recovery Resource of $200,000.
Second.
Been properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor on the amendment?
Aye.
All opposed? Amendment passes.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Reynolds?
I'd like to make a motion to approve Amendment 2 to reduce transfer to capital fund by $1 million and create a new line item for ditch maintenance as outlined in the amendments produced to the clerk's office.
Second.
Been properly moved and second in the discussion. All in favor on his amendment?
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Reynolds?
number 3, third amendment, would like to reduce create a performance contract for $25,000 for groundwork mobile and pull that money from Public Works Executive Administration attrition.
Second.
Been properly moved and second in the discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Amendment passes.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Reynolds?
Amendment 4 is to reduce summer youth program from Dr. Robert Gilliard Elementary School as a result of, increased performance contract for summer youth program from United Methodist Inner City Mission for Taylor Park.
Second.
Been properly moved and second in discussion. I believe that Mr. Reynolds was trying to say that in reduction of the Boys and Girls Club at Gilliard Elementary School, the president is not there. The Boys and Girls Clubs are looking for another location on Dolphin Island Parkway, but at this current time they do not have one. We transferring the money to Taylor Park, which this will be a contract because they have a summer program for kids from Williamson High School, which is in District 2, all the way to B.C. Rain High School, which is in District 3. So it covers a large range of students throughout the district, parts of District 2 and in District 3. And so that, I believe that was Mr. Reynolds was trying to explain.
That's correct, Mr. President.
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Amendment passes.
Mr. President,
Yes, Mr. Reynolds.
final amendment, Amendment 5, is to take various attrition expenses and create a new performance contract fund for Ransom Ministries for $200,000 as outlined in the amendments put forward to the clerk's office.
Second.
And properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Amendment passes.
Mr. President,
Mr. Reynolds.
I'd like to make an amendment to the resolution itself to reflect the attached amendments that have been put on record with the clerk's office. This is just amending the resolution itself.
Yeah, it just needs, at the end of the resolution, just a comma with the attached amendments.
That's my motion.
I'm not clear what we're doing. I see. Okay. I second.
Okay. Properly moved and second in discussion.
Mr. President.
Ms.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah, I have an amendment. Before I present that amendment, I need to lay some background information so everybody understands why I'm bringing this amendment forward.
Mr. Jones, let us go ahead with this amendment and we come back to you.
Okay, but we're not voting on the
We're not
budget.
voting yet.
Okay, all right.
Vote on what Mr. Reynolds have on the floor.
Okay.
Anything else? Any other discussion on Mr. Reynolds? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Mr. Jones.
So last week I tried to get some information from the Alta Point speakers, and that did not happen. So I started getting a lot of phone calls and emails afterwards. I did a lot of research afterwards, and I got the information needed to put forth the amendment that I will today. First and foremost, I want to ensure that before I get into the specifics of this amendment, I'm in no way trying to downplay the services that's provided by Alta Point. I know what they do is needed and very much required in this city. I am looking at the performance contract and the financial and operational status of the Alta Point organization that's requested funding, as well as their past performance, which I believe is absolutely within the realm of due diligence that our constituents absolutely expect from us. With that said, I found it extremely interesting a week ago to get the level of pushback over a $200,000 reduction in order to fund other mental health care service providers. The extreme level of deflection when asked specific, targeted, and direct questions forced me to do my own research, since the answers that I was seeking were clearly not going to be provided by the CEO of Alta Point. I find it more interesting that 30 mental health care professionals came down in a show of force to support Dr. Parker while she made her comments. What I found out from a caller last week is that Tuesday is one of the biggest mental health intake days of the week at Alta Point. How many patients did not get admitted because they were here for 4 hours last week? The other fact that I found was at Alta Point, and this came from our finance office, from the financial the records that were provided for their previous performance contract, Alta Point bills $288 per hour for each one of those mental health workers that you saw Tuesday. If you do the math, that's over $34,000 that cost Alta Point last Tuesday. What that shows me, it's not about the $200,000. It's about the monopoly that they're worried about. In the current Alta Point strategic plan dated September 2019, they specifically state that mental illness is in the area in our region with the greatest unmet need. That's from their strategic plan. You can find that online. Google it. I believe that each of my colleagues would concur with that statement. This has been a topic of discussion both here and in the past. It's a constant topic of discussion in this state. It's a topic of discussion throughout our nation. The reason I put forward the amendment last week was that one major issue I hear when discussing mental health with my constituents and those who need these services for family members is that there's an absolute lack of alternatives outside of Alta Point in this city. In quite a few cases, that's extremely problematic for families as they want options, and some today are driving to Georgia, Tennessee, Mississippi, and other states just to get the care that they need. Today, those options are extremely limited, and moving $200,000 for any of the other service providers that I've talked to would be a 10 to 20% increase of their total operational budget, which is about $2 million a year. AltaPoint's operating budget in 2020, and I can't find any records beyond that, $125 million, which a majority of that is paid through federal and state grants. That $200,000 for their operating budget is 0.016%. It doesn't slash their budget, as was stated on a TV broadcast last week. With regards to the financial health, AltaPoint's enjoyed record profits year over year going back to 2010. Their operating revenues increased from $47 million in 2010 to over $125 million in 2020. A majority of those revenues, as stated, come through taxpayer dollars in the way of federal and state grants. These reports are not my own information. This comes from their reports on their website at altapoint.org, which they have posted. I was directed to that by one of their employees last Tuesday after the city council meeting. Going back to 2018, AltaPoint cleared $7.4 million in profit. In 2019, AltaPoint cleared $7.2 million in profit. In 2020, the year that they merged and shut down services for the MARC, they cleared $11 million in profit. Last week, Dr. Parker addressed this very council, and she said, and I quote, "We find it very discouraging that now with the rate of depression skyrocketing in our community, that anyone would consider reducing our budget." She went on to say, and I quote, "What we don't want is to have our money reduced. Let us keep our money to serve our patients," unquote. For what it's worth, every nonprofit is required to report the salary of the top 5 individuals on their staff. The last report that I was able to find was in 2008. And again, this is by law, they have to report this. Dr. Parker's salary in 2008 was $250,000 a year. That was 14 years ago. The reality is that this is not AltaPoint's money. This is the taxpayers' money. Taxpayers who also realize that the mental health care in this region needs more services provided. With regards to providing services promised, in September of 2014, a year that saw AltaPoint increase their revenue by $10 million, they once again were trying to reduce services that they were obligated to perform with the probate court of Mobile, Alabama. In an official document to the CEO of AltaPoint directly from Judge Davis, and you have these documents in front of you, he specifically states, and I quote, "Disappointment compounding disappointment is about all I can say with regard to your last-minute ultimatum to deny patients referred to you by orders of this court," unquote. Judge further stated that he was attempting to resolve the ongoing issues and ameliorate the dangerous public safety condition caused by AltaPoint's position to refuse these patients. He also goes on to question the credibility of the statistics that were presented as facts in the case argument to not accept court-ordered patients. After last week's council meeting, the mayor and city council members received an email from Mr. Holmes, and you've heard the issues with them cutting the services provided in that year in 2020. Again, I will remind you, $11 million in profit. In a Homeless in Mobile forum, Ms. Elizabeth Chiplich, we have heard address this forum in many occasions. She posted on November the 10th, 2021, quote, entitled PTAD, Post-Traumatic AltaPoint Disorder. She states, and I quote, "I have been struggling for months to get an intellectually disabled and mentally ill man named Frankie help at AltaPoint. It's mind-boggling to me, even after reaching out to the Alabama Department of Mental Health Advocacy Division, that I still cannot get this man help," unquote. Later in that thread, an employer that I'll keep anonymous states, "It is 100% about the dollars. Their, quote, leadership are nothing more than empire builders. I speak from experience, having worked there," unquote. I had a fellow veteran who had a close friend who had been in inpatient treatment in 2014 reach out to me at the behest of his family. I have not found this in writing. This is by phone call. Brian Bennett was treated at Alta Point, and on Friday, February the 28th, 2014, his insurance ran out. He was removed from Alta Point because he lost his insurance. On Monday, March the 3rd, 2014, Brian killed himself. That year, in 2014, based on Alta Point's records on their website, they did $6 million in profit. I've been told by many former employees that Alta Point routinely practices the same thing today. In fact, I was told that there's a secret amount of beds that will always be reserved for those with insurance, and they are not to be filled with indigent patients, regardless of contractual obligations. This is in keeping with one bit of information we did get last week, that patients are being turned away. These people will not come and talk to the city council because of fear of retribution from Alta Point executives. I heard from one service provider last week that was shocked she was finally able to get someone into an Alta Point facility until she realized that the reason she was able to do it was because they had insurance. She'd been trying for a month to get others in. In an NBC report dated February 21st, 2022 that you have on your desk, it states in that report that, quote, the only provider for mental health inpatient services in our area, talking about Baldwin County, may be forced to cut back services and is making a plea for help. When questioned about the $11 million in excess revenue, the statement was made that it was going to infrastructure issues. The only document that I found online that deals with any infrastructure requirements was in 2018, at which point they put 2 purchases to infrastructure for $1 million, a far cry from $11 million that was stated there. Alta Point owns and controls the entirety of the 310 board, which you heard about today. That board used to consist of many service providers that either went out of business or were merged into Alta Point. Today, Alta Point is the only member of the 310 board. This is the board organized by this city and the county commission, who has given control of this board to the mental health providers. Over time, again, that board now consists of only Alta Point. Before you is a document which is titled the Alta Point Health System Schedule of Expenditures of Federal Awards. You will see on that no federal grants had passed through grantors. When this started, Drug Education Council received $600,000 through the 310 board. After it became Alta Point's board, that trickled down to zero, just like everything else. I think there's maybe $10,000 or $20,000. I can't find the exact information there. But everyone that I've seen reported has no pass-through on the federal grants. What I see is an organization who routinely and deliberately cuts mental health care services to pad their profit. One last bit of information I received through numerous phone calls and from folks who've been trying to get this information out is that the CEO of Alta Point paid a salary anywhere between $600,000 to over $3 million a year. I've submitted a request for the Freedom of Information Act because I can't find it. Again, these are taxpayer dollars paying these salaries. I have no issue with someone making a really good salary, but not in a nonprofit for over $500,000 a year on the backs of taxpayer-funded mental health services. As they say, mental health care is the biggest unmet need in our region. These are just a few of the stories of dozens that I've heard just this last week. I don't know one taxpayer in my district that I've talked to who thinks this is okay. Questions that these facts lay out are, why are services being cut back year over year while profits continue to grow exponentially? Why do they need the city's $600,000 when that is but 5% of the excess $11 million revenue? If you took 5 other mental health service providers that we have in this city and totaled up their complete operating revenue, it would be less than their excess revenue. and they can provide immediate health care services for indigents in this city that are getting turned away today. One thing that I believe is absolutely essential to consider when we're looking at this amendment is that every organization outside of Alta Point would suffer significant impacts, and these are those that have performance contracts in front of us today. Every one of these organizations would suffer significant impacts if we did not fund those requested dollars. With Alta Point, the only setback that I see from all the records in front of me is that it would cut into their excess revenue of millions of dollars. There are 3 to 5 other mental health organizations, again, that can provide these mental services today, which is why I'm asking the $600,000 be taken from Alta Point in that performance contract, moved to the Office of Resiliency, where Casey Calloway can submit contracts and do performance contracts with other entities that are ready to provide these services today. $600,000 is not going to have a negative impact on Alta Point based on their own financial records. Thank you, Mr. President.
So that's your amendment, Mr.
We need a motion.
Amendment number 6.
We need a motion.
Okay. So you need to make a motion.
So move to add Amendment 6 to the budget line item, or to the budget.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Wait a minute. That's correct. Okay, read out what your amendment is.
Amendment 6, delete $600,000 line item under performance contracts for Alta Point Health Systems, creates a new $600,000 line item under Public Works for Resiliency Office, specifically earmarked for mental health services.
Do I have
That's the motion.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Mr. Reynolds.
This is a question, I guess, to Mr. Jones. So if this amendment were to pass, the $600,000 that would just be basically moved from one bucket in the budget to another bucket in the budget, the city then still has the opportunity to fulfill a performance contract with Alta Point. Is that your understanding of this?
They could. However, I will be requesting that it go to some of the other service providers that need that money a lot worse than ones that putting $11 million in the bank every year.
The reason I bring that up is because the city has already put forward a budget saying that they want to give a performance contract to Alta Point for $600,000. They've made that request to this body to approve. And, you know, if they choose, which I see Alta Point as a partner to our city, I think they do a lot for us. We've got other partnerships already in place with them. I've had a lot of discussion with Turk about Alta Point and the services they provide. And, you know, hospitals are expensive to run. There's no question about it. And indigent care is certainly expensive to pay for, especially out of pocket. So, you know, for one business to have an enterprise and make money on one hand and then be able to take up the slack for indigent care on the other hand is certainly helpful. And one thing that I will say about Alta Point is hospitals in our area have gotten out of the mental health business. And, you know, fortunately, we have somebody here who is in the mental health business, you know, full scale with having a hospital, 2 hospitals in our area, a crisis center, all that sort of stuff. When, yeah, maybe there are profit centers in some parts of it, but you know, without Alta Point here, I don't know how we provide the level of care that we do provide. So I think this is a public service to them, but I have no objection to basically moving the money from one bucket to another bucket, and then the city, who's already made their request to have a performance contract with Alta Point, you know, put it under the purview of the Resiliency Office, who is very much involved currently with our homeless population and various other resiliency efforts in the city. So that's where my support comes from to you all at Alta Point. You know where I stand with it, and that's it.
Mr. President, if I can respond.
Mr. Jones.
Yeah, again, like I said up front, we have got to have Alta Point services and what they do. However, like I just laid in before you, $11 million in profit The money the city gives them is going in the bank. It's not being used for the services that we're providing. I can't say that about the other service organizations. They're begging for money so they can provide the indigent care. What I know for a fact that I just laid it out in front of you, these aren't Scott Jones facts. These are facts that are in evidence in probate court, online, their own documentation on finances. $7 million, $5 million, $8 million, $11 million, year over year over year over year. Nobody's arguing they perform services. But what you heard testimony in here today is they also deny services and cut services. And when they cut services, they've still got excess revenue. So why are we not going to give that $600,000 to other mental health service places that need it, that can provide the services that they're turning away at Alta Point? So no, I'm not doing an amendment to make $600,000 available under a different line item to Alta Point. The purpose of that amendment is to make sure that other service providers have the opportunity to take care of the indigent population that they're ready to service today. Thank you, Mr. President.
Any other council members? All in favor of Mr. Jones' amendment?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
No.
Abstain.
Abstain. All right. Going back to the original as amendment. Any other council members?
This is budget as amended.
Yes. All right. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
No.
All right. Pass.
Um, 01823, authorize agreement with Moss for reconstruction of McGregor Avenue. 08824, approve item-based bid for dive equipment. 08825, approve item-based bid for tires retreading services. 08826, approve purchase orders for fuel for various city departments. 08827, approve purchase order to SHI International for servers and processors for MIT. 08828, approve purchase order to Samsung equipment for loading arm and wiring harness for garbage truck. 08829, approve purchase order to WW Granger for gas mask and filters for MPD. 08830, approve purchase order to CDW government for iPads for public services department. 21831, authorize contract with Kedem Construction for exterior repairs at the Arthur R. Outlaw Convention Center. 21832, authorize contract with Mott McDonald Alabama LLC for Cypress Shores drainage improvements. 23833, accept right-of-way deed for Halls Mill Road and Demetropolis Road intersection improvement project.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second in discussion.
Yes, sir, Mr. President.
Mr. Reynolds?
I'm talking on two items. 21832 is to authorize a contract to improve drainage for Cypress Shores, or at least the design phase of it. This is $310,000 that's being spent precisely for the purpose of drainage, to design or redesign the entire neighborhood that was developed decades ago to a standard that is no longer sufficient, as the residents have found. So we will have some community meetings about this, but we're going to start the process to figure out what we need to do to redesign the ditches and drainage in this neighborhood. The other item I am going to speak on is 23833, is to accept the right-of-way deed for the Halls Mill Road and Demetropolis Road intersection. This is a project that's been long underway. There's always been some real estate issues that existed at this intersection of Halls Mill Road and Demetropolis Road. With the increased popularity of investment and demand on our roads in the greater Tillman's Corner area, we found that this intersection is really insufficient to handle the traffic and turning of 18-wheelers and all that sort of stuff. So Although this is just one piece to a much larger puzzle, it's definitely a step in the right direction, and I think the citizens will appreciate when this is a signalized intersection.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Passes.
37834, approve a certificate of public convenience and necessity to Medvac, Alabama to operate an ambulance service.
Move delay over 90 days.
Second.
Properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item laid over 90 days.
Consent resolutions being introduced 09836 through 6852.
Move to waive the rules for immediate consideration of these resolutions.
Second.
And properly moved and second in discussion.
Did you? Yes, sir, Mr. President. 09836, was that called?
It was. I think we added the 10,000 to that capital.
Yes.
So no need to amend?
No. Okay. I'll take all of these.
Did we vote?
Oh, did we?
We vote. Okay, all in favor?
No. We didn't vote on. We didn't vote to waive the rules.
Well, we got to waive the rules.
Jenna just did it.
There's a,
Well, I moved to waive the rules. I guess we need to vote.
Okay, in discussion. Yeah.
There's a
All in
motion.
favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Rules waived.
Okay, I'll take all of these with the exception of 6850, which I'll take separately. Okay. 09836, transfer funds from general fund to capital improvements fund. 37837, recommend approval to the ABC Board for issuance of a retail liquor license to Red Bar Espresso and Market on O'Shell Road. 4838, 839, 840 are fixing the cost for demolition and securing of structures at 2767 College Street, 1162 Congress Street, and 1300 Persimmon Street. 6841, 842, 843, 844, 845, 846, 47, 48, and 49, 851, and 852 are approving award. 841 is approving award of special bonus to the Administrative Services Employee of the Month. 842, determine appropriation to Tomanville Rattlers Sports Mobile Alumni Chapter Kappa Alpha Psi Incorporated, doing business as Mobile Kappa League. The Miss Alabama Foundation, doing business as Mobile Bay Organization. John L. LaFleur High School. Omega Community Outreach, Inc., Just for Development Laboratory, United Methodist Inner City Mission of Mobile, Inc., Shell Bayou Temple, Mobile Regional Senior Community Center Foundation, Inc., and Alabama Big Ten Mayors Association serve a public purpose and approve payment.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes.
6850, determine an appropriation to McGill-Tulin Catholic High School serves a public purpose and approve payment.
Move to table.
And properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Items tabled.
Resolutions being introduced 01853 through 21865.
By council rules, these resolutions will be laid over for 1 week with the exception of 01-853.
Second.
Properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Madam Clerk.
01853, authorize agreement with Mobile Area Water and Sewer System for McGregor Avenue widening.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?
We got to waive the rules.
Yeah, I think we need to
Well,
waive the rules.
She said,
Well, I said with the exception of, but do we need to officially waive the rules? Okay.
Motion to waive the rules for
Second.
immediate consideration.
Of 81,
Okay.
853. Second.
All right, properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Madam Clerk.
okay. 01853 is authorizing agreement with Mobile Area Water and Sewer System for McGregor Avenue widening.
So moved.
Second.
Properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Item passes.
Call for public hearings. 41866, call for public hearing to consider approval of a certificate of public convenience and necessity to David Matthews, doing business as Gulf Coast Pedal Tours, LLC, to operate a pedal trolley service scheduled October 11th.
So moved.
Second.
Been properly moved and second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Public hearing is called.
Announcements.
District 4, Councilman Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just going to take a second here to speak on a great man that we lost this past Sunday. There is no doubt in my mind that this world lost one of the good guys. My longtime mailman, Victor Birch, and one of my brother's very best friends was killed Sunday on Rangeline Road at the top of the bridge coming over the Industrial Canal. And I can't tell you how impactful Victor has been to my brother and many others in this community, in the running community, and his daughter, his wife, Leah Birch, his daughter, Leah, his son, Greg, and his wife, Ann. I'm sorry that this happened. We certainly lost a very good man. To the Bluebell Bombers, Victor led the charge for you all for so many years, and I hope that y'all stick together and continue to carry on the tradition that you all created as a racing team. I also want to let the public know that on Sunday morning at 6:30 a.m., 7 o'clock a.m., anytime between then and 11 a.m., show up down at Commerce Park. There'll be a tent set up. There'll be plenty of people out there walking, running, and doing it for Victor, doing it as Victor would like everyone to do. There'll be food and drink and everything else. So my brother asked that I invite you all out. I hope you all come. Thank you, Mr. President.
District 1, Councilman Finn.
No announcements.
District 2, Councilman Carroll.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, let me announce the Administrative Services Committee meeting next Tuesday, immediately following the council meeting. I would say probably 1 o'clock. It's to discuss the master plan area for the Civic Center and also a proposal or scope of work provided by Spec that was issued to all council members at that time. Also, this Saturday, I attended the soft opening of the African American Library that used to be on MLK and viewed its restoration that was done by County Commissioner Mr. Ludgood. Found it to be a tremendous undertaking and very well done in all aspects of historic restoration. And matter of fact, this building is right down the street from Heart of Mary's and also around the corner from the 264 North Dearborn Street property that we talked about today. Great undertaking, and also informed that County Commissioner Mr. Ludgood is in the process of doing a master plan for the whole area that includes civil rights issues, restoration of property, and revitalization of the community along with other things that she is drastically working on over there. This is her first undertaking, but I think her second of two undertakings that she now has going on in that area, one with the restoration of the Franklin House and now this issue itself. And lastly, we've all been keeping up with the plight of Heart of Mary's, and we know that they are open. This Saturday, October 1st, from 10 to 7, they will have their fall festival out in the lawn. I encourage all of you to stop by, maybe spend $1 or $2, buy a raffle ticket, and let's support Heart of Mary's as they work their way back.
District 6, Councilman Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. Had an amazing week last week with the University of South Alabama inauguration and President Joe Bonner. What a great day that was to celebrate with them. Also, Saturday evening's football game, the City Appreciation Day. Still got work to do to get that stadium packed out, but I think they gave away and sold over 20,000 of the 25,000 tickets. And South took care of business on the field Saturday night. So looking forward to more of the upcoming leadership from both President Bonner and the coach there. Bob, again, thank you so much for you and your team, Celia, for all the work y'all put into the budget. Kudos to y'all. Hours and hours spent on that. I just can't thank you enough for all the time and the questions that you answered back to this council. I will tell you that, the budget's passed, but that issue will not go away. There's a groundswell coming. The truth will come out, and that performance contract has to come before the city council again. I will continue to talk to my colleagues. I'll continue to talk to the administration. We've got to do better in the mental health space. It's not going to stop if we don't shed light to it, and it's our responsibility to do it. I will not let it go.
District 5, Councilman Davis.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'm happy to announce that we will have our fall District 5 community district meeting on October the 18th, Tuesday, October the 18th at 6 o'clock p.m. at Westminster Presbyterian Church, corner of Airport Boulevard and Sage Avenue. Thank you.
District 7, Vice President Gregory.
Thank you, Mr. President. I too want to thank Bob and Celia, the band leader, and your entire team for everything you did on the budget, for reaching out to all of the council members time after time, asking us if we had any questions that you could answer, and for sitting down with us and going through everything. So thank you for doing that, and for working with us on the amendments. And to Ben, thank you for your efforts. I know you kind of went out on a limb to some degree, but as it progressed, the amendments progressed as well, and I think they are very workable and provide some needed changes within the budget. So thank you for doing that. In particular, the mowing and the ransom performance contract. I'm particularly happy about those. I know it's not quite Christmas, but everybody is starting to get ready for Christmas, and so am I. So we have scheduled my District 7 community party. It's always a great event at the Museum of Art. It will be on December 5th, yes, at 6 o'clock p.m. So go ahead and put that on your schedule now. We'll be reaching out to various department heads to come and to participate, and hopefully we will have some entertainment from the Mary B. Austin singers. They're always terrific. So again, it will be at the Mobile Museum of Art on December 5th at 6 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Gregory. I would like to say to Councilman Jones, congratulations, you're almost keeping up to the traditional District 6. Yeah, no upon the budget, but I would say to Councilman Jones, I did abstain on your amendment, and and the reason why is because I know that the Mobile Police Department is working well with Alta Point, and don't know how that would affect, if it would affect any. But I would say to Alta Point that the community is talking. A lot of stuff that Councilman Jones had mentioned has been brought to me, and even as far as is Alta Point is too big. Matter of fact, we had a meeting before. One of the representatives, she asked a question, to you all, is Alta Point too big? Questions out in the community about the money, and only thing I have to ask is that in the next year, please prove yourself. Please show not just the council, but the public, because the public is questioning. And I have received many questions throughout, this past year also. So some of the stuff that Councilman Jones have stated, of course, it had hit my desk also, and I'm pretty sure probably some other council members also. But again, you have a year to prove that. Also, I would like to say congratulations to President Bonner and also the USA football team on this past Saturday. Several council members and myself, the county commissioner, we went out to the football game, and of course, they won their football game on this past weekend. It was a great time out there that we had on this past Saturday. And we were scheduled to have an upcoming meeting at Revelation Baptist Church dealing with questions about the future of the housing board and et cetera. We had to push that meeting back on next week, next Tuesday. I'm planning on announcing the new meeting date and plus another community meeting in District 3, and also announce our Christmas plans, holiday plans, also on next Tuesday. Is there anything else from this council? Anything from the administration?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Been properly moved and second in discussion. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed?